Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. Today we're going to be looking at the non-GX variant of Alolan Exeggutor, one of the only decks that can still compete post-rotation as a non-GX build. And as we move into the basic concept, the simple reason is because this deck still has enough ball search to get its Pokemon rolling. Thanks to the rotation of Nest and Ultra Ball, not many other decks can compete, but thanks to Mysterious Treasure, being able to get the Dragon Alolan Exeggutor as well as Exeggcutes, and Netball getting you Exeggcutes and Grass Energy, we can still get our Pokemon into play pretty easily and get rolling. That's the whole idea. So this deck is relatively unscathed by rotation. Obviously, it would love to have some of those cards, but it's still able to function with these other alternatives that we are left with, which is really awesome. And then there's the addition of Giant Bomb alongside Shrine of Punishment to try and turn this usually like 2-hit KO deck that's just limited at 120 damage into a much more dangerous kind of archetype where you're pressurizing your opponent a lot more, putting them on a clock, using that shrine to get extra damage here and there, and Giant Bomb giving you, big bursts of damage as well. Of course, we have 160 hit points, so oftentimes if they want to 1-hit KO on a Alolan Egg, they oftentimes have to get towards that sort of number, and if it's 180 or more damage, the Giant Bomb is going to be putting 10 counters on them, which is obviously very good for us. So let's move into the Pokemon. As I mentioned, we have Treasures and we have Netballs. That's why we have a 2-2 split of the Exeggcutes. We gain 2 Psychic ones from the new set, which is awesome. So we have 8 Ball Search cards as well as 8 physical Exeggcutes and the Ditto. So plenty of outs to find early Exeggcute. We're playing the 40 hit point Exeggcute as well for the Grass type that has Multiply, allowing you to just search your deck for an extra Exeggcute. I think that's pretty reasonable. It's a shame that the Psychic Exeggcute has like a terrible attack, but it's just something to bear in mind. Then we have 4 copies of the Dragon, Alolan Exeggutor, and it has the Tropical Shake attack, which is the entire selling point of the deck. For a single Grass, you do 20, and 20 more for each different basic energy in your discard pile, up to 100 more damage. So effectively, once you get 5 different energies in the discard pile, you are maxing out Tropical Shake for 120. That's the entire purpose of the deck. Getting those energies in the bin is going to be the Shuckle a lot of the time, using that fresh squeezed ability. When you put this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you can search your deck for up to 3 basic energy cards and discard them. Simple as that. We're going to try and get some of our one-of energy cards, get them in the discard pile to increase the damage output of Tropical Shake. It also has an energy drink attack, allowing you to attach 2 energy from your discard to your Pokemon anywhere that you like. Very, very rare that you'll do this, but in random spots, maybe if you're not able to find your Brock's Grit or something like that, where you're running low on grass energies, you might do this to just power up like a couple Exeggutors in the back. Man, that's a tongue twister of a Pokemon. We then have 3 copies of Jirachi. One thing that I think is like lacking from like the rotation list is that usually it had Let Loose and Oranguru to not only like pad out your draw, but also giving you extra like Pokemon so you don't just get benched. So rather than just having like the 4 Exeggcute, the 2 Shuckle, Ditto, and Mew, which I previously had, and a few more supporter cards, I've now gone down the route of having a very thin Jirachi package of just 3 and then 2 escape boards, so that we have more basics in the opening turn so we don't just get benched. And obviously this is like a new optimal lead. So effectively with the Ditto, the 4 eggs, and the 3 Jirachi, we have 8 like pretty good starts for us, which is really nice. Stellar Wish, obviously great. In between those knockouts from Alolan Exeggutor, we can just Stellar Wish, get that value, try and get us back into the more supporter cards, or get us more towards Ball Search and whatnot to make sure that we can continue attacking with Tropical Shake. So I like the Jirachi as an optimal start in the deck, as well as being defense against like just losing on the opening turns, if you can't find any Ball Search or whatnot, and also just in those sort of mid-turns where you can get extra Stellar Wish value between the knockouts of our non-GXs, so that's always pretty good for us. Then we have the Mew. Bench barrier still pretty important against Pikarom, of course. If they can knock out 2 Exeggutors, that would be a huge problem. So trying to have the bench barrier is cool. It's even better because we actually have Brock's Grit and Treasure in here, so even if they are going to try and like spend custom catchers into knocking out the Mew, we can sometimes, if we time it right, we can put the Brocks down and Treasure it straight back into play as well, so that could be a pretty nice option for us. And then the Ditto Prism literally being a 5th Exeggcute, so we have better outs of just finding multiple in those opening turns because we want to jump up in high hit points as soon as we can and get these army of Exeggutor into play. Onto the trainers, we play 4 of the Mysterious Treasure, which I've mentioned earlier, can get you the Exeggcute, the Psychic ones, the main attacker, Exeggutor, as well as the Mew. The Netballs can get you the 2 Grass Exeggcutes, the 2 Shuckles for getting your damage straight away, and also getting grass energies so that we can attack, which is nice, giving us extra outs to find those cards. Acro Bike has synergy with discarding basic energy cards as well as digging deeper into our deck. Custom Catch is always good when we're going to try and pick off certain things. Maybe something like a Dedenne that's had a few shrine damage counters put on it throughout the game, or just finish off things that you've tried to 2-hit KO. We are playing 2 copies of a skateboard, I've already mentioned. It can be nice if you just don't start one of your good leads, but always great on a Jirachi, of course. And we are then playing 4 copies of the new Giant Bomb card. It discards itself at the end of turn, but essentially, if the Pokemon this card is attached to receives 180 damage or more, you put 10 counters on the attacking Pokemon. So that's the whole idea here. We essentially safeguard our Exeggutor and say, if you want to take a knockout, you're going to take 10 damage back to yourself, or 10 damage counters, so 100 damage, basically, straight back on the opponent. And with the help of Shrine and whatnot, we're hoping this is a big deterrent against tag team decks and other regular GX Pokemon. Speaking of deterrent for those decks, Shrine of Punishment is also going to be something that we can try and have an edge against our opponent with. Again, putting things like Dedenne into range of custom catcher knockouts and just helping on tag teams all over again. Even with a Giant Bomb and a 120 damage swing, we're not knocking out, tag team Pokemon, so the Shrine is going to come in to try and make that a little bit easier throughout the entire game, and we're going to try and contest the Stadium War as much as possible. Onto the supporters. I've tried to go pretty simplistic here, playing 1 copy of Brock's Grits to recycle our Exeggutors as well as our Grass Energies. Do bear in mind you have to use this late game because you definitely do not want to be putting back in any excess energies that you can't afford. So make sure this is saved until like the late game when you've already had like 2 Exeggutors knocked out or something like that. So then you can just put that back, like 2 grass and the 4 eggs. Then we have 4 copies of Cynthia, 4 copies of Lillie, just the straightforward standard supporters, which are always pretty good. With the treasures, the Acro Bikes, the netballs, we have a lot of insta plays, so Lillie is still strong in this deck for sure. Onto the energy, no real surprise here. 6 grass is going to be what we go for. With the additional outs of netball, this should give us plenty of options to find these multiple times over. And then we have 5 individual energies here. The fire is the most important one because you can randomly get help via Big Oven or via Heat Factory. And then the other ones aren't too important which ones you play. There aren't many other synergy stadiums out there anymore that you can take advantage of for these different types. The fighting and the psychic ones I like playing just to sort of fake your opponent out in case you're playing something like a Baby Buzz or a Nihiligo. But honestly, you can just pick your favorite colors if you want to at that point. So yeah, just individual energy cards to help out against, these are mandatory for your damage basically. Shuckle will be taking some of these ones and getting them straight into the discard pile as soon as possible. Onto the full list, pause now if you really want to. But yeah, that's what it's going to be. For tech options, I've thought about adding in Oranguru. Man, I love this card post-rotation, just because you can get back things like custom catchers. Getting back more giant bombs could be pretty fun as well. Getting back Shrine can be nice for winning out the Stadium War. There's a lot of reasons why I like trying to play Oranguru. The only way I try and work him in is if I cut maybe some of the stuff to fit in like 2 switches. Then it makes your Jirachi a little bit stronger, whilst also helping you like move into the Guru for the right turns. Viridian Forest is a stadium that I've thought about a lot. It's obviously very good for giving you extra discard synergy for basic energy cards, which is obviously a big deal. I'm hoping that the Acro Bikes and the treasures alongside the Shuckle is enough. But Viridian's definitely a card I could consider. Also giving you better outs in like the mid game against things like a Reset Stamp if you're going to get into your next attacker and whatnot. We are going to also consider things like Pokegear and Erica. Like I said at the start, talking about the Jirachi, initially my list played like Pokegears and extra supporter cards over the 3 Jirachi to a skateboard that I was playing, but I was getting a little bit worried about A, Reset Stamp, and B, just getting benched in those opening turns. So I think Jirachi's a better safeguard, but those are options if you don't agree. And also there's going more down towards the Dragon route. If you want to add in the Fight Song Altaria for extra damage modifiers. Dragon Talon as well is a much more annoying tool now that there's no more Field Blower. So that's definitely something to bear in mind. Also, you could even go even crazier and think about having a Lance Prism Star in the deck. I would only ever tinker with the Lance if I was playing Pokegears, but definitely something to bear in mind. Onto the matchup overview. I don't think there's too many that are ultimately like very poor. I think your Malamar matchups are some of your worst because the Psychic Malamar is probably going to have like spell tags and distortion doors and stuff. They'll never get hit by Giant Bomb, and Egg being stuck at 120 is really bad against Giratina, so I think oftentimes they'll win out in that matchup. Shedinja as well, we have no answers for in the deck at all. Rowlet Eggs, the GX build, I think is going to be also very difficult. They will never be popping the Giant Bomb, and they have so much healing in the deck that they can just undo that 120 over and over again with things like the Shamans, the Gardenias, and all that good stuff. And Aegislash, very similarly to the Psychic Malamar matchup, I think that will also be very difficult. The reason why Ultra is still awkward is, of course, they have their GX attack that can knock out things like your Jirachis and your Shuckles and whatnot. It's easy pickings for them, so those are some awkward bad matchups. I think those are the only things really keeping this deck at bay, because I think oftentimes you might have pretty reasonable tag team GX matchups. I know Pikarom oftentimes does play Lysandre Labs, so your bombs do get shot off at times, but it's not every single turn, and even if you just get like 1 or 2 bomb detonations, that's going to be really good for you. That's what it's all about. So, onto the closing thoughts. I do think that even with the amount of ball search this deck has, like, I tried this deck pre-rotation, and it was always a little bit clunky, and that was when it was playing, like, 15 ball search cards. So, only playing 8 still makes me pretty sketchy and a little bit worried here and there. So, don't think that this deck just runs like butter. Like, it doesn't. It's not as smooth as you'd like it to be. It's still a little bit clunky here and there, especially getting that amount of energy in the discard pile. I do think the Shrine is like mandatory post-rotation, but if you want to play Viridians, I can see you getting to that 120 damage on turn 2 like a lot more often. So that's like a trade-off you have to think about. And then my final thought is that, man, Giant Bomb is like made to look like an amazing card in this deck. This is like the best deck that can use Giant Bomb, and that's a really funny thing to say as well. So if you want to have an Egg Bomb kind of deck going into Worlds, that's very meme-worthy. Big props to you for trying to play that. And yeah, let me know what other decks you've been trying Giant Bomb in. Do you think it's a meme card? Do you think it's actually very strong secretly going into Worlds? I'll hear the discussion down below. Let me know how you've built Alolan Exeggutor. And also let me know what decks you want to see next for Unified Minds, because there's still plenty more on the way. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in another video tomorrow. Cheers.